the very nature of protest is by the time anybody sees a frontline protest on the news, it's an act of last resort. You can be assured that a hell of a lot of work has gone into trying to resolve the situation without resorting to that. You know, when sitting down to watch the news, I'd see activists getting arrested. I always admired the fact they were prepared to go to jail for their beliefs, and I didn't generally see that as something anybody would take lightly. And later on, I guess I wanted to right some wrongs, possibly naively. Whereas as that goes on into developing a skill set around achieving the best results, you realise it's hard work to right wrongs. In the days before mobile phones and most people having a video camera and laptop computers, so it was a case of being very deep in a very remote forest with you and the loggers and the police, and a lot happened that just stayed out there. And it doesn't take very long for human beings to forget a certain era if they weren't there. And in the case of the Iraq War, it became clear in 2002 that the Bush administration was determined to expand its operations from Afghanistan post 9/11 into Iraq and invade Iraq. And the arguments for weapons of mass destruction were just never cutting it at any level. And all of the world could see it and used all of those processes at a UN and international diplomatic level to prevent it, yet failed. And as the failure of that became apparent, a grassroots movement developed, a bit of a final cry of defiance from, at least this end of the world, where 70% of the Australian population opposed the deployment of troops as part of the coalition of the willing. Will was quite vocal about it. He said he had this tin of paint and he wanted to paint a message against the war. And his first suggestion was some wall in the back streets of Newtown. And I said, for God's sake, you've put it somewhere more meaningful than that. And he asked me where would the best place to put it. And literally as a semi-joking and to make him think, I said, well, on top of the sails of the Opera House. And I saw him draw a breath and went, wow, Will's actually taking this suggestion seriously. And we were both pretty angry at what was going on, like the rest of the world. Son, he saw the consequences more than anyone, certainly the financial one. Going to school and people go, what does your dad do? And he goes, oh, he feed his buildings and he goes to jail. And, the stories of how people ended up in there and why they ended up in there and their circumstances. There's millions of stories out there. You just want them all to end as well as possible. Keep a good head on your shoulders because, as we're seeing, right now, there's, with all the stress on so many people in the world, and it seems to manifest into a kind of global despair or panic, and people, as we're seeing, are turning to a great deal of misinformation to comfort themselves or to simplify the problems in their own heads. When, the first thing is you've got to be comfortable that it's not simple, and sometimes it comes to the sheer numbers of being better than the industry you're taking on, rather than the moral issues of wrong and right. You've actually got to outwit them and provide a solution.